some people believe that Palestine, or whatever the state will be called, let's just call it PA, is from the river to the sea. Okay, so then you don't believe in a Jewish state. I come from the premise that I think a Jewish state should exist. If you want a Palestinian state, tell me where, tell me who, tell me how, and I will be open-minded to hear that contention. But if it's nothing more than the eradication of Jewry between, Jerusalem to Tel Aviv and Haifa, I'm sorry, that's where now we're blurring on going backwards, not forwards from, okay, we're going from Israeli government to Israel to some problem with the Jews.
Hi guys, this is Sahar TV, and in today's video we're watching Charlie Kirk at Oxford saying his opinions as a Christian about Jews, Israel, and keeping the Sabbath, which is a Jewish thing. Let's watch.
A more personal question on the idea of like Christian youth and you being a very devout Christian. I remember speaking to your assistant during the vacation and he's saying you don't respond on a Sunday because you participate in
Saturday, actually. Yes.
Saturday,
yeah,
sorry.
That's right. Yeah, that's very astute.
Yeah. So kind of like more, why do you kind of like, is that something you've taken from the Jewish tradition?
Now I really like you. Now you asked the best question anyone's ever asked. I could talk about the Sabbath all day long. I don't know if anyone is interested in this, so you could roll your eyes. But I'm a Christian, so whether or not we're bound to the Jewish Sabbath is hotly debated. There's great arguments for, great arguments against. I'm actually writing a book right now on why I honor the Sabbath. It's very simple. It's called Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Change the World, basically. And it is an argument that in this hyper-materialistic, very fast, digitally frenzied world, that there is this gift that I believe the Lord gave the Hebrews that we have decided to just gloss over. And it's very simple. It's that for one day you will stop, that it will be holy, that it will be different. For those of you that are agnostic or not Christian, I still encourage you to do this. People that honor the Sabbath live longer. We know this with the Seventh-day Adventists. They actually are happier. They have better health outcomes. Everything about disconnecting from modernity is good for you. It is inarguable. Like this is a material fact. But why is it that we have forgotten it? Well, for me personally, I work like crazy for 6 days. On Friday night, even Sunday morning, I turn my phone off and I try to stop. I try to make it distinct. I try to make it different. It's where I do my best thinking. It's where I do my best time with my family. And again, this kind of goes back to, okay, we're trying to create all this new stuff. Like, wow, we're gonna have this new technological innovation. We're gonna have this vaccine, and we're gonna be able to solve this with quantum mechanics and quantum computing. And I'm kind of like, honestly, something was told to us on Sinai that we shouldn't forget. That like, you shouldn't work for 7 days. In the retelling of the 10 Commandments in the book of Deuteronomy, the only difference of the retelling of the 10 Commandments is when Moses says, hey, you shouldn't work 7 days because you're no longer a slave. What Moses is saying is like, only slaves work for 7 days, actually. And we in the West have kind of been slaves to our work. And I say this as a free market capitalist. That's not good. It's making us depressed. It's making us anxious. And all of you have the agency to disconnect from that, to make a choice to no longer have to be subservient to the ever more, next text, next alert, next email, next WhatsApp message. And it kind of goes back to a theme I've been saying, that it has worked. It's also a phenomenal civilizational preserving tool. It's worked for the Jews. They've been kicked out of a lot of countries, and a lot of people have hated the Jews, including right now. And they're thriving, and they're growing, and they continue. I think God has given us a preservative for a civilization, and I believe it is the Sabbath.
Thank you very much. Just picking up on a comment you just made just then about a lot of people hating the Jews right now. Would you elaborate more specifically on what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, and not everyone who is against Israel hates the Jews, but everyone who hates the Jews is against Israel. So it's an important connection. Look, I mean, it's coming from both sides. We all see what's happening on social media. There is this kind of temptation to blame the Jews for all of your problems. I think it's sloppy and it's wrong. No group is perfect. No group is going to act in a directionally consistent way. But look, I think that it's, at least in my country, I don't know if you guys are seeing a similar rise in the United Kingdom, but I think that there is this temptation to say that all the world's suffering is because of a small group of people, many of whom I have not met. And I reject that wholeheartedly.
But would you say the criticism is of the Jews or of the state of Israel, which I think is
Oh, no, those are two different things. So there are 3 issues here, and that's a very good question. And we must have the maturity to differentiate them. And in the Q&A, we could talk Israel, Gaza, whatever you want, obviously. But there is a difference between Jews, Israel, and the Israeli government. And I acknowledge those differences. So Jews are, is a very complicated thing because it's a people, but it's also a religion, and it's an ancestry, but it's a culture. Almost nothing like it in the world, right? Where you're kind of born into it and you can be like an atheistic Jew, but there's also like a religious text. And then there is Israel, which I believe is fundamental to Judaism. God tore Israel is the informal like trinity of Judaism. And then the Israeli government. You can support Jewish life and support Jews and support Israel, but not support this current Israeli government. It's a perfectly mature view to have. It's fine. Like I have disagreements with Netanyahu. I have agreements. I think it's okay. But I actually think we could de-escalate a lot of the finger pointing around this issue if we look at it through that lens. That anyone who says like, oh, we're going to blame the Jews, well then that's the first, like no one here rationally I think would, if you believe that, then we could talk about it. But then if you're like, well, I don't think Israel should exist or I don't like Israel, okay, that's another step, but that's a more reasonable argument, one I wouldn't share. But then if you're criticizing the Israeli government, so where I think a problem emerges is where my side, where I am pro-Israel, we conflate those three things and we immediately say that you're against Netanyahu, therefore you're against the Jews. I'm sorry, I think that's immature, it's sloppy, and it actually creates more resentment where it otherwise would not exist.
Thank you. On the state of Israel in terms...
By the way, I agree. You can criticize Israel all you want, criticize the policies of Israel all you want, but if you don't believe in the right of the Jews to self-determine in their ancestral and indigenous homeland, it is anti-Semitic, because you don't criticize all the Muslim countries around the world or all the Christian countries around the world. You're cherry picking and you're only choosing the Jewish state and the Jewish people that quite frankly have the strongest connection to the land of Israel. That's anti-Semitic. But you can criticize policies all you want.
of its existence.
Oh, here we go. Great.
I was going to leave it to the Q&A, but we started. Just a question and your belief in the state of Israel existing in its current form. Is it biblical or is it just a political belief?
Okay, so you asked, is it biblical or what?
So is your belief on the current state of Israel, where it is and how it's formed, is that belief biblical?
So I'm not a theologian, but I am definitely more, let's say, aligned with a view of Ezekiel 36, that there is a reconstitution of the state of Israel, and that was prophesied. I will bring you from across the lands and graft you together. I don't want to get into that. Again, if you guys want to talk about end times theology, I'm honestly going to be like, let's get a more important question, because I don't know it that well. I'm not that interested in it. It's called eschatology. There's pre-tribulation Christians, and then there's post-tribulation Christians. I'm pan-trib. It's all going to pan out in the end, okay? Jesus will return. I'm going to be on the welcoming committee, not the planning committee. And so, like, I'm not overly interested in that. Instead, I think what is lost, and I think I would like at least the anti-Israel advocates, I don't want to say anti-Israel, the critics of Israel that will come up and ask questions to acknowledge this, that it is miraculous that Israel in this current form exists. I mean, it's really unbelievable what Ben-Gurion and the Zionists were able to pull off from just the Zionist perspective. It is a miracle, considering they were attacked from every direction, from its charter, completely under attack, and totally brutalized. Number two, it's interesting because in the Balfour...
And the Muslims who claim that Allah is with the Ummah and he rides with the Muslims and he helps the Muslims, they lost every single war against the kuffars, against the disbelievers, against the Jews, who won every single war against the Arabs. How shocking.
Declaration, as you will know, actually was the smallest suggested size for Israel as of all the four plans. All that to say, what do I believe about the current composition of the state of Israel? Well, my historical analysis of whether, it should be formed or not, I actually think it should be, is not that relevant. The more important moral question is, what do you think about what is happening right now? Do you think that Israel has, I don't like I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. Like, do you think Israel has a right to exist? I think more importantly, do you believe that a country has a right to be able to defend itself into existence? That's a more important question. That if a country can prove to itself that it can exist, should it then be given recognition? So I don't know if that answers your question. It's kind of just a mind dump on the topic. I seek to actually find reconciliation on this. I think there is a downplaying what happens on October 7th to a great detriment. And I think that at times, those of us that are pro-Israel need to acknowledge war is awful, war is brutal. I'm a Christian. I hate when I see these videos of these kids being killed. I mean, it's terrible. I want to see this come to an end. I mean, like, who can possibly see that and support that? And anyone who's like, for example, like Nikki Haley signing bombs that are going to be dropped in Gaza, like, that's repulsive. I'm sorry, that's disgusting, okay? Like, that's going to be used against people that shouldn't, like, that are just complete casualties in the war. And so, yeah, I hope that offers some clarity on that.
No, thank you. But then in terms of the question of being pro-Israel and the right of Israel to exist, when Palestine very much exists and they're fighting for their own self-determination. How do you reconcile?
They're not fighting for their own self-determination. They're fighting to kill and destroy the Jewish state. They never had a dream of self-determination. And if they have publicly said something like this, it's just a cover. They had so many chances to self-determine, to build a state, to get a country, but they refused every single time, despite the very generous offers.
Both.
So I would push back a little bit. I think what some well-meaning Arabs are doing in the West Bank is righteous. What Hamas did on October 7th was not a fight for self-determination. I would find great exception to that claim. 1,300 people going in on a holy day on Shemat Torah, 50 days after the Six-Day War, on Shabbat, to go to kibbutzes and a music festival to kill 1,300 people and take 200 hostages, all while filming it on GoPro cameras, and then some of which, not all, calling back to their relatives on WhatsApp saying, I just killed 10 Jews. Can you believe it? I just killed 10 Jews. I'm sorry, that's not a fight for self-determination. That's something horrific and brutal and evil that every human being with a conscience should say that's wrong, and we don't support that. And so, again, as far as this idea of self-determination, there are important, and these are not trap questions. The settlements make it very difficult in the West Bank. What is a Palestinian? What are the borders? Who's in charge? These are, again, and it also kind of goes back to this because I also have to throw it back. Some people believe that Palestine, or whatever the state will be called, let's just call it PA, is from the river to the sea. Okay, so then you don't believe in a Jewish state. I come from the premise that I think a Jewish state should exist. If you want a Palestinian state, tell me where, tell me who, tell me how, and I will be open-minded to hear that contention. But if it's nothing more than the eradication of Jewry between, Jerusalem to Tel Aviv and Haifa, I'm sorry, that's where now we're blurring on the going backwards, not forwards from, okay, we're going from Israeli government to Israel to some problem with the Jews. Does that make sense? That kind of that gradation of regression, I think, is very harmful to the dialogue.
I don't think Palestinians seek for self-determination. They already have a country. It's called Jordan. The majority of the people living in Jordan are Palestinians. They are simply not happy about the fact that Jews live in a land that they also lived on. And they'll do whatever is in their power to remove us from the land. Now, I guarantee you that if you go to Israel, to the beach of Tel Aviv, for example, and do a Q&A and ask people, hey, would you like to see a Palestinian state exist? With a guarantee that they'll never attack you again. You'll have secured borders, they'll have secured borders, and everything will be peaceful. Will you agree? They'll say yes. If you go to Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria or Gaza and ask the same thing, they say the Jews need to go back to where they came from. They'll say the Jews need to be killed. They'll say that they need to be under the Islamic rule of Palestine. That's the dissonance between the two groups. And about the Shabbat that he talked about, I agree. Disconnecting for one day is the most magical thing you can do. I started doing it not too long ago, and it has impacted my life in an insane way. The conversations with my wife get better. The quality time I have with her is better. The quality time I have with friends, remarkable. So I want to give you a challenge. This coming Friday, turn off your phones. Don't watch TV. Focus on spending time with your loved ones, with your family, with your wife, with your kids. Walk around the city you live in. Detach yourself from technology. If it has improved their relationship with your loved ones and your mental health. If you'd like to watch more of my stuff, please check out my channel down below. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification button so you can be notified every time I upload new content. If you'd like to support me and the channel financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. Also, we now have a Discord that you can join down in the link below. And now you can become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.